Welcome to OK Smartass. This is the show where we put technology under the microscope. In this episode, we talk health tech and we try not to mix up brushing your teeth and peeing while taking your blood pressure. Now, time to look at what's happening in technology, innovation, and the gadgets that make our lives so much more exciting. Hi, I'm Patrick Bonello.
And I'm Tor Roxburgh. I'm a writer and a reader and someone who loves change and future-focused thinking. Patrick, you're right to worry. I'm worried about this new toilet checkup too, but I hadn't thought about oral hygiene in toilets.
Well, I'm a journalist. I have a marketing and graphic design business. And Tor, I get the sense that you're kind of obsessed with health gadgets.
Oh, well, you say that, Patrick, but I think you were the one that dug these ones out. So, maybe you have to own it. But that we have talked about toilets and health checks before, haven't we?
Well, this is true, but what's happened is the Consumer Electronics Show has been run in Las Vegas in the US. And so I cherry-picked some of the more interesting, cherry-picked, maybe that was I could have used a better phrase, but I had a look at what was good and what was interesting and kind of clever. But we always like our health gadgets. And I know we'd spoken about this in one of the earlier episodes. And so this is a functional version that you can purchase, you connect it to your toilet, and basically it can even detect, depending on the stream of the person who's using it, who is doing what at any given time.
Who's on the toilet.
Who's on the toilet, exactly. And it's got little capsules as well. So I think you get about 3 months out of it, and that allows you to be able to sample. Now, the thing is, it's not something that you want to get obsessed about, and it's a bit like health trackers, but I think it's about flagging when potentially there might be something wrong. So the way I see it is, it's not about getting obsessed about every single time you go to the bathroom. It's more about picking up things that then are kind of abhorrent or come out of the open, and it's like, well, wait a minute, that shouldn't be doing that. So I reckon that's the reason I would consider it. Would you get one?
Maybe not this one, because this one sort of looks like a little white disc that goes in your toilet. I don't think I'd like to have that in my toilet. I mean, I'm waiting for a toilet that it embodies the testing equipment. So the toilet interior looks exactly the same.
Yeah, but you're going to spend a lot of money on a new toilet. This is just retrofitting your current toilet. It's like putting a heated...
Yeah, you asked me what I wanted. That's what I want.
All right. What about a 10-second toothbrush? Because, look, we all go through the chore of brushing our teeth and we're told, 2 minutes is something that we should be aiming for. Well, there is this new toothbrush that's called a Y brush, and it's kind of odd. It's a bit more like a mouth guard, and it uses ultrasonics. So there's sonic vibration. So you put it on your top row of teeth. 5 seconds later, they're clean. Flip it over, do the bottom row of teeth. 10 seconds, done, out you go.
Yeah. I don't think this is ever going to catch on, really, Patrick.
I've put my order in. I'm getting one.
What?
I'm going to get one.
Seriously?
Do you think about it? Hang up, right? So twice a day you brush your teeth, right? That's 1 minute and 20 seconds that I'm going to save every time I brush. So that's 2 minutes 40 every day. Now, if you add up those 2 minutes 40 seconds every day, that's a lot of time that I can do other stuff.
I can't imagine that people are that worried about the timing.
Oh,
but
really?
Also, maybe that time brushing your teeth is nice thinking time.
Really? You think
Yeah.
while you're brushing your teeth?
No, I don't.
No,
I'm just making it up.
Yeah.
However, if it did a better job, I'd get it.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
You'll have to let us know whether it does in fact do a better job.
It is.
Now, I'm not
Yeah, it's $124. The only thing I'm concerned about is that the replacement brush heads are $44 each. So I kind of want to see how long you get out of them. If they're saying you've got to replace it every month, maybe.
No.
But I think if you get maybe 2 or 3 months out of it.
Okay, we'll test it out on you.
All right.
Now, I'm not sure whether this was in your consumer product show, but this blood pressure monitor that clips onto your finger, I like the sound of this. So instead of a cuff.
Yeah, this is a real big step forward, because I don't know if I've ever explained to you or kind of said on the show at all, but I have a thing called white coat hypertension.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know what that is. It's actually quite a common condition, I guess is the way of putting it. whenever I go to the doctor and they get the cuff out and they put it on and then they hit the button and it starts to inflate, I start to get panicky. And no matter what I do, I can try to focus on something else. But I go to the doctor and I think, oh gosh, I'm holding my breath. Seriously, it has such a profound impact on me that my blood pressure jumps when I get my reading done. And you can do 24-hour monitors. So you've probably seen those. But the problem with that is the bloody thing still inflates anyway. So it doesn't solve the problem of getting white coat hypertension. So this is one you put on your finger, isn't it?
It is. It's like the oximeters, the ones that check your pulse when you're in hospital and your oxygenation levels. I think it's really good. I didn't think about you and your white coat hypertension. I thought about people who are in the emergency ward trying to sleep, and they often put the cuff on you when you're recovering or when you're critically unwell and just leave it on, and it sort of pumps up and down, at various periods of time, and it's quite disturbing and uncomfortable. I know my sister, when she was alive with her intellectual disability, found the blood pressure cuff really distressing. But this would be much better. You could sleep through it, presumably, just leave it on or pop it on. Less intrusive.
I think if you could put it on your toe, that'd be great as well. The funny thing is when you do the 24-hour monitor, and I've done this before, you're absolutely right. Once it starts to inflate, you wake up. So it's broken your sleep. Yeah. But the other thing is I've almost strangled myself getting tangled up in the tube. So I tend to turn around a lot when I sleep. And so for me, it really didn't work well at all. And probably I got more stressed doing the 24-hour, blood pressure test. So no, it wasn't a good thing for me. I'll tell you one thing that I am pretty excited about is healing wounds quicker. Smart Band-Aids. How cool.
And I have to say, Patrick, that I've just been on a writer's retreat with some colleagues. And while I was there, when I wasn't writing, you might think I shouldn't have been doing this, and I probably shouldn't have been, but I read a science fiction trilogy. And in the trilogy, they had something like this. They had these things called correctives. So if anyone wants to enjoy that, that was Anne Leckie, the Ancillary series.
See, I thought what you were going to say was you got into a pen fight with one of your other writers and someone got stabbed and you needed a smart Band-Aid. That is the most boring response I've ever heard.
Oh, come on. Except that in the book they could, fix broken legs and all sorts of things. But healing wounds, that was one of the things.
So you put the Band-Aid on a wound and it monitors the wound. They say that it can actually heal 25% faster. So
in mice, Patrick.
I know mice are just the healthiest animals on the planet with all this research, but Stanford University researchers are currently using this electrical stimulation, and they use these biosensors, and they say by electrically stimulating the wound, it actually will speed up the healing process. And it's wireless, which is great. It's got temperature sensors to monitor the healing as well, and you just have an app on your phone. So the idea being is you put your smart Band-Aid on, you pair it to your phone, and it will increase the healing properties and allow you to monitor without, because think about it. How many times do you peel a Band-Aid up just to see whether the wound is kind of healed properly, and then you put it back down again? Well, that's not good.
No, and I think the real win for this is people who get those chronic wounds, ulcerated wounds. We'll have to wait and see whether it in fact works as well as suggested, but it is exciting.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool, and it has a lot of applications, and particularly when you say, with people who have chronic conditions, particularly if you've got diabetes, wounds on the lower limbs and extremities can really cause extreme problems. So to be able to heal those a bit quicker, that'd be great.
Yeah. Now, Patrick, if you get into trouble, would you use a robot chatbot to defend you in court?
See, I saw this article and it said for the first time in the world, a robot lawyer will defend a human in court. Now, that's clickbait, if ever I've heard.
It certainly is, because it's not a robot.
It's not a robot. It's just an app. It's just an app.
It's a chatbot.
Okay, so it's a chatbot. Would I use ChatGPT? I've met a few lawyers in my time. Actually, I shouldn't say anything. My next door neighbour's a barrister, and one of my clients is a lawyer, so I probably have to be nice to lawyers.
And
No,
there's lots of great lawyer writers. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Look,
Mm,
I don't know. You know what I think this would be really good for is if you are one of those people, and particularly in the US, where the whole defense system can be really dodgy and expensive. I can
mm.
see for kind of I mean, you wouldn't use this in a murder trial. But if you were trying to get over a parking fine and you'd had a number of parking fines and they were using this AI generated lawyer, then it could draw from a really large database of previous cases and then the basis for that would be to use pre-existing information where court cases have been solved or the defendants have won the case. I think this would be kind of handy. I'd almost be there with the app prompting my lawyer. I'd be kind of pointing to my
Yeah.
code and say, use this argument. So maybe in conjunction
Yeah.
with my lawyer talk.
The backstory for this is really quite interesting. So it is being offered by a company called Do Not Pay, and I went and had a look at that, and it's a kind of a website that tells you all sorts of things like how to get out of being fined for your parking tickets, obviously, but all sorts of other things that consumers might want to find out, like how to get your refund quickly, how to get money instead of credits when you're getting a refund. And the story behind that is a guy called Joshua Browder, and he won a Thiel Fellowship of $100,000. Part of the fellowship is that you have to drop out of university to
What?
start your
What?
business.
What? Okay. So it's a fast track to starting your business. Well, that's great because
Yeah.
it can go towards your
And
debts, your education debts.
yeah, so one of the Harvard professors says the Thiel Fellowship is the single most misdirected bit of philanthropy.
I love that. Of course, they're going to say that. They don't want people dropping out. They're going to lose their job. But I think that's a
Well,
great way to
Peter
distribute.
Thiel is one of those conservative libertarians, sort of diametrically on a different pole from me. But you can see how this fits in with that ethos of kind of fostering individual rights and individual power. And as you say, for something like a parking ticket, could be quite handy. And of course, in the future, your judge might be a chatbot also. So,
Well, ChatGPT,
mm,
ChatGPT has taken the world by storm. And in fact, the people who designed it put it out in a panic because they were just running out of funding. And they thought, we just got to get this out there. And they have been blown away by how many people have been using ChatGPT because they amassed more than 1 million users in the first 5 days. I mean, it's not Pokemon Go, but I got to say, it's pretty darn good for an uptake.
yeah. Now you have to compare that. So Netflix, it took them 3.5 years to amass those million users.
Yeah.
And, then from there it goes Netflix, Airbnb, Facebook, it took 10 months, Spotify, 5 months, Instagram, 2.5 months, iPhone, 74 days, and Chat GPT, as you said, just 5 days. So
It's
it's
pretty amazing.
really,
Yeah.
yeah. And the interesting thing is that there's been a study that's tested whether ChatGPT could pass the US medical registration examination. It didn't quite pass, but it's really close.
Wow. I can just think of all the
Yeah.
times I didn't quite pass anything and
Yeah.
whether if I had ChatGPT, that would have been great. It's a can of worms too, because obviously artists are concerned that it's kind of similar AI are scraping all this data using particular styles. You're an author. How do you feel about your writing style being emulated by an AI?
Well, I guess I'm at a stage in my career that no one's emulating my writing style at this
Not even
stage.
yourself.
I mean, I don't know. I've been writing professionally since I was in my 20s, but yeah, I do wonder if it's more of a problem for artists, but let's see, might be equally a problem for writers. I'm not so sure. Um, certainly this chat GPT and AI originally we thought that AI was going to sort of take away the jobs of truck drivers and warehouse people. But increasingly, as we saw with the previous story, we looked at lawyers, and now we're talking about artists, writers, doctors. It's looking more of a threat to the professions than the non-tertiary level workers.
Well, if you kind of look at Elon Musk's attempts to get self-driving cars happening, did you read an article recently? I know I'm digressing, but it was basically the first tests or the first media debut of the self-driving car was faked. One of the
Yes.
engineers said it was it was fake.
Yes.
So,
yes.
okay, look, now I've had a bit of a dive into ChatGPT, and I know that we did a couple of episodes earlier. You cheated and you used ChatGPT for the entire show, and I've got to say it was one of the best we've ever done. No, so I've been using it for computer programming. So I've been getting ChatGPT, to do some HTML code, and my colleague Robert's been playing with it. And one of the questions he asked ChatGPT was, "I want to show a website within a website on our site." So our business website is genesisfx.com.au, and we wanted to showcase a client's website. So rather than clicking off the site and showcasing it that way or doing a screen grab,
you wanted to embed it.
It's embedded in the site. Absolutely. Now, Robert has no knowledge of code at all. So we use smarter people than that for, to do our code stuff. I say that because Matt's sitting about 5 meters away from me, so I better say something about him nice. But no. So Robert tried to use this and it worked amazingly well. It generated the code. We were able just to drop the code into the page and it looks impressive and it works really well. So it has been fun to play around with it. And you've done more of the text-based solutions and
I have. And I found it like very handy when I'm starting to do some research about a topic that I am unfamiliar with. I've found it very handy to get the right language to then go and do my Google search and look at original sources, because often you'll start looking up something and you'll just get all the wrong responses from Google because it might be similar to language that means something quite different in popular culture. So I found it really handy for that. When I was away, one of my colleagues, an author, Kimberly Starr, who's an award-winning author, we all had a go at, like, when you used to Google your name.
Oh, so, I still do.
You can chatbot your name, and the chatbot.
I haven't chatbotted my name. I
yeah. Well, you've got to have some level of profile, but it just made up stuff. It gave her a book she'd never heard of that she allegedly wrote. So who knows? I think you've got to have some level of public profile because it's got to have been able to have scraped the material.
Well, wait a minute. Did you search for yourself? Have you chatbotted yourself?
No, I did. I was listening to the others doing that.
Oh,
have you got me?
I'm logging in as we speak because I've got to find out now because we'll have to do a comparison. You know that, don't you?
Yeah.
I'm just going to type into ChatGPT who is Tor Roxburgh. So here we go. Make sure I got the spelling right. Now I'm asking ChatGPT. I could not find any information on someone named Tor Roxburgh.
Okay.
Could you provide more context or clarify the spelling of the name? She is a friend of Patrick. No, let's see what that says.
Right. Move along. Let's move along.
Wait a minute. ChatGPT is working. Let's see what it comes up with. Oh, it's I think I broke it. It's not anything. Wait a minute. ChatGPT just froze. It's not. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. I did not have enough information to determine who Tor Roxburgh is without additional context. I'm unable to provide more information about her. It doesn't want to know anything about you.
No.
Yeah.
Put author and podcaster.
Yeah, and look, and I'm going to fess up. It doesn't know anything about me either.
Oh, okay. So you did that on the down low. All right,
I did the same thing. I just did it then.
Move along. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
So we are not in that club yet.
No, we're not the Chat GPT club. I'm not too disheartened by that. Microsoft, of course, is one of the investors in Chat GPT. So
Yeah,
yeah, they've put a lot of
yeah.
money into it. And Google is absolutely freaking out. Now, this is at the
Mm,
same time that Google's just gone and announced it's sacking, 12,000 people.
mm.
And at the same time, they're talking about releasing up to 20 projects powered by artificial intelligence. But they're freaking out because ChatGPT has much more of a, and I'm going to say human feel, but a more of a conversational feel to the search algorithm, much,
Yeah.
much better than what Google does. Have you found that?
Oh, yes. It'll be interesting to see when Google releases what it's got, because I did read that the, the suggestion that they were being slower because they were being more careful about misinformation. I don't know. Obviously, we don't know if that's true. I just wanted to clarify, Patrick, the other episode about 2 episodes ago when we spoke about OpenAI, I was uncertain about whether that was a for-profit or a not-for-profit. And when I had a look this week, it's in fact not surprising that we're all of us a bit unclear on that, because it was originally a not-for-profit, and now it's moved to this hybrid model where it's for-profit, but the profit is capped at 100 times any investment, and then anything in addition beyond that goes to the public, according to its website. I don't know what that means in reality. So Microsoft has been a huge investor in it. It's invested billions, and part of its investment has been Azure, credits in Azure, which is its cloud platform. So it's interesting and a bit perverse looking from our country, because I don't think there's any way that a not-for-profit in Australia could transform itself into a for-profit, although not-for-profits can make a surplus, but they have to be, that surplus has to be used for charitable purposes.
It seems like a creative accountancy is much better in the US than it is in Australia.
Well, it's a different legislative regime. So maybe that totally makes sense in America, but it's very odd from this perspective.
I think AI is obviously here to stay. And, it comes down to any tool. We know that it's being used in industry. I saw a really interesting article recently by an architectural firm that is using it to do 3D rendering. So they're
Okay.
actually, yeah, they're using some of the visual versions of, DALI and the other ones
Mm,
that are out there. You know, the argument that I used previously was if you were a draftsman, 25 years ago, you would have had a pen and a paper and a ruler and you would have meticulously drawn the lines.
mm.
No one thinks that a draftsman needs to do that, draftsperson needs to do that anymore. What you do is you just plug it into a computer and it's all on screen. So, you know, if we're working towards a 4-day work week, if we're working towards a situation with a society that is more focused on well-being and lifestyle rather than, laboriously sitting at a desk all day long, maybe this is part of the solution to it.
Yeah, I'm a bit skeptical though, because you think about how now um, we've got a lot of technology and people have been working more, well, I believe people have been working longer hours, and both genders. And I mean, it's great, both genders are working, but you just think about the amount of work that the burden of work that we've all had in recent times. So I'm not sure it's technology. I think those sorts of changes to balance work and leisure, um, it's a legislative framework that works best.
But you do need the tools to go with it, though. I agree. And yet, legislation is important because it
Mm,
needs to be at a kind of a higher level than just the corporates driving it. And
mm,
that's really important when you're kind of involving unions and employers and all
mm.
that sort of thing, because
Yeah,
basically people still need to make money and people need to create that wealth.
yeah,
And
yeah,
how do you do that if you've got less hours? I mean, we're not
yeah.
paying. Well, at this stage, there's a basic payment. I think they're about to release a pro version of Chat GPT, which is going to be
Okay, of
subscription based.
course. Yeah,
Well, it's going to
naturally.
Yep. Yeah. So
Now,
that was going to happen.
Patrick, we have to talk about this amazing thing that's happened in my special area of
Oh,
interest,
you
which
and your
is
bloody cultured meat. You know that I've just turned vegan, don't you? Did I
I
confess up?
know you
Yeah.
told me, and
Mm.
that's really exciting. So I might have to step up to the vegetarian level, but not till I come back from overseas because I'm going to some heavy meat eating cultures. So I might just enjoy that first.
Can I tell you, just quickly before we dive into this, because I know
Yeah.
you're keen on it. I called my brother once and we were just chatting, my identical twin brother, about what we'd eaten for dinner. And I said, I just had a tofu stir fry. And he said, well, he just had a nice juicy steak. And I said, you know, that steak had a mother and a father. And his response was, oh, three-course meal. It was pretty quick, I got to tell you.
Same,
Yeah.
yeah, same humor. So look, the really exciting news in meat, cultured meat, is that the chief rabbi of Israel has made a determination about it. And just to put it in context for those people who are not aware, in the home of a religious Jewish person, and I would say probably almost all religious Jewish people follow this rule. You don't put milk and meat together. And in Orthodox households, that means a whole separate set of dishes and different cooking facilities and different washing facilities just to make sure that milk and meat never get together. And my understanding is that the Talmud says something about, I mean, the Torah says something about it's enough to take the life of the mother without taking, the milk that belonged to the child or something like that.
Oh, that's where it comes from. Yeah. I
Yeah.
did some
So,
research for this.
yeah. Now, probably people are most welcome to write in and correct me because this is only vague memory of when I started to convert to Judaism that I never completed. Anyway,
Well, you
there's a
failed dismally on that front.
yeah,
Atheist now.
there's a third category of food which is, and again I'm not going to pronounce this properly, which is pav or pave. I've heard different pronunciations, and that class of food is neither milk nor meat, so you could have it with either. So the chief rabbi has ruled that cultured meat falls into that third category, which is revolutionary for Jewish households because it would mean that you could use it in all sorts of ways. There is an issue that you're also not supposed to give the appearance of mixing meat and milk. So I read somewhere one rabbi saying that if you're having meat with almond milk, you should scatter some almonds on the table so people are not led astray.
Oh my gosh.
All sorts of interesting. I find it really fascinating. Anyway, look, it's not like the Pope. It's not like the chief rabbi, rules everyone who's Jewish, but this will have a huge influence. And he's given this approval to Aleph Farms, which is an Israeli company that is going to soon begin selling steaks in both Israel and Singapore. And potentially they're also starting to talk to Muslims and Hindus about how they would feel about cultured meat.
Because at the end of the day, one of the things that I'm in favor of with cultured meat is that potentially you could save so many animals because you only need a clump of cells. The animal can still happily go off and do what its own thing. And then you've got this opportunity to create tons of meat from these cultured cells.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, it means less animals being killed. So I'm kind of in favor of that. Would I eat one? No, I still can't
really
imagine
and
myself eating
it
one.
cells can be from a living animal. The
I
animal
know.
doesn't have to die.
I don't even chew my nails, Tor. Like no, I just, it's meat. It's still meat. And that's the thing. I mean, I'll have a plant-based meat. That's got no problem.
Yeah.
Look, I think the jury's out. Will I go down that track? I'm not sure. Can I just say though, I didn't know a lot about kosher meat and how the animals are slaughtered and prepared, but it's basically that they have to go through this process under traditional Jewish law. And so the fact that, this is pretty quite strict. And the fact that you can get these cells and you're able to culture that meat and it's been effectively rubber stamped is a big step forward for this company. And
Yeah.
I guess, you know, if I was talking to someone about the idea of eating cultured meat and, you know, is it heavily processed? But if you're growing it the same way that a muscle would grow because you've got cells sitting in some sort of nutrient solution that are just
Mm.
allowed to grow to form the meat product, then that's no different than growing a cell inside a body.
I would say it's much less processed than
Mm.
the plant-based
I
meat
knew you were going to
alternatives.
say that. I so knew you were going to say that.
But yeah, look, who knows? Let's wait and see. We're all going to have a chance to make that choice soon enough, I think.
And we may be able to do it for a lot longer because we may have discovered the fountain of youth. And when I say we, that's kind of the royal we. It's interesting, you know, I think I want to come back as a mouse because I think all this cancer's been solved and cured in mouse and mice. They, you know, now they're talking about making old mice grow young again. And you know, I look, I'm not a fan of animal testing, and I prefer the idea of, I guess, growing cells and culturing to test,
Mm.
and not killing the animal in the first place. But Boston Labs have taken old blind mice, and I just hope there were three of them, Tor, because I just love that it was three blind mice, and they've regained their eyesight. And they even say that they've developed smarter, younger brains, and they even built healthier muscles and kidney tissue. So this
Yeah.
new technique that they're talking about aging and potentially reversing it.
Yeah, it's amazing. So this lab is run by David Sinclair, who's actually Australian, but has been working in America for ages, and he's been working on this concept of aging being a disease rather than a natural process. And until fairly recently, it was widely thought that it was, mutations and cells going astray because of those mutations that caused aging. But he believes it's a loss of information. And his work suggests that cells do have the capacity to read original DNA and reverse aging. I've read his book and I've heard him talk. He's very, I think, very glib about the ethical problems associated with extending life, to 150, 200 years. Uh, it For me, clearly there are problems. I mean, can you imagine if your dad was suddenly, physically 30 or 25 again? I mean, he wouldn't obviously stay in his aged care. He'd be out. He might start dating other 25-year-old, but real 25-year-olds, and could sort of re-enter an adolescence, and not to mention the fact that there'd be so many more people in the world because, people wouldn't be dying.
But people might also make the decision not to have children until they're 120.
Well, that's true. That's true. And that there are people looking into the implications for women and women's fertility. I haven't read up on that, but I know the research is going on. And what about the passing on of wealth too? That wouldn't happen.
Well,
So
yeah, you know, that was lingering in the back of my thoughts in terms of, you know, obviously, I don't think anybody really wants anybody. Well, maybe that does happen actually in some
no, to
families.
die.
Yeah, to die so they can then inherit. But there
Mm.
really is a kind of a mindset that people have dibs on family members' wealth. And I guess at the end of the day, it would be a very big mind shift or a shift in the way that people think about how wealth is distributed and whether that's even a factor in economic models, you know, when you think about how that works as well. But you're right, there'd be a massive impact. It kind of almost has an element of selfishness in it, of wanting to turn the clock back. Do you think?
Maybe. I mean, I think like in its sort of purest form, I can see where David Sinclair is coming from, that it's a beautiful thing for people who've lived a life and have that wisdom and education and can make potentially enormous contributions if they're restored to pre-aging good health. I don't think it's selfish. I just think that with finite resources, it looks selfish and it will cause problems.
If you could, I guess, fund it yourself, potentially, but then it would
But
create
then
a
there's
massive
class
divide between
problems.
exactly.
Yeah.
Then you've got the rich and the poor, and you
Yeah.
know very well that if they develop this and it costs $100,000 to take 5 years off your life, well, we know who's going to be paying that sort of money. It's going to be the Elon Musks. It's not going to be the poor person sitting in Calcutta, begging on the streets. So
Yeah.
the reality of it is, it's just going to push that divide further and further. I'm trying to think. There was a movie about this, and I'm trying to, and I look, it escapes me at the moment, so I'll have to look it up. But I think
Yes.
there are a lot of ethical issues with it as well.
Yes. Yes. It's on the tip of my tongue what that might have
It
been,
wasn't
that
Elysium, was
movie.
it? No.
Oh, okay. Next
Next
episode,
question.
we'll
Okay.
have to come back with the answer. I had a little obsession this episode with bikes and cars and car parks.
Yeah, where's that come from?
I don't know. I'm not really interested in cars normally, but I did hear of
Wait a minute.
someone.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. You obsessed for 2 years about getting an electric car charger in our town. You can't say
Yeah.
you were obsessed. You were absolutely
Okay.
obsessed. I didn't
Okay.
knock on everybody's door
So
in the main street.
Uh, first up, Patrick, is another solar car. We looked at the Lightyear solar car from the Netherlands, and this one is a three-wheeler, and it's about to start production in 2023. You like the look of this, Patrick, don't you? It looks a bit like a teardrop
It
with.
looks like a speeder. I love it. It looks so cool. I so want to be driving around in this because I would be the coolest person in our town. I could fit my schnauzer in the back. I could be sitting in the front. No, it is the sexiest looking car I've ever seen. It's so Jetsons everything. It's exactly what I imagined. Honestly, this and a jetpack, and that's it. My life would be complete.
Yeah, because I don't think I wanted it. It looks odd to me.
What? You wouldn't drive around in that?
Mm.
Right. Well, there you go.
No.
What?
And three wheels. But I want four.
What's less tires to replace when they wear out?
Mm, uh,
You're not
okay.
convinced, are you?
Well, we've got more. We've got time to think about it because it was meant to launch in Australia in 2023, but it's not. So
Oh, okay.
we'll wait and see. We'll see what the world makes of it first. So the other thing is that they're using something called, well, they're trying to use something called AI intuition about where to locate parking lots.
I thought this was really fascinating. I had no idea so much logistics goes into creating parking lots because when I park at the train station where we live, I no one put any thought into that. They're all too tiny. And then you get people with their Teslas parking across three places at the same time. Have you noticed that? That
No.
people rush to the train station and they're obviously running late. And because it's so small and so compact, if you're even slightly over, now there's a parking etiquette. And there are people in our town who don't observe it because they actually cross over into the other lane. And then it means it's that domino effect because then every other car has to push into the next lane. So you end up losing car places.
Well, they're on notice now, but this thing is called the facility location problem, and it applies not just to car parks in cities, but also locating hospitals. So apparently it's really, really, really hard to do because you have to balance things like the cost of the real estate, the loss of the amenity, the proximity to other facilities, accessibility for disabled people, proximity to the right workforce, when you're picking what site, where to build a new hospital, where to build a new car park. So they're trying to develop this thing called AI intuition, which AI can get you so far, ordinary AI, but apparently there's this thing that humans are still reasonably good at, which is kind of the intuitive sense of what's going to be better. I'm a bit skeptical about whether we are actually better at that, but they use the example of the skilled engineer being able to touch a bridge and think, oh, that doesn't feel right. But I don't know. What do you think?
Well, they say they're using selective attention mechanism. They're calling it SAM, but it is based on human intuition. So they're saying they can use. I mean, I don't know. when I think about, you get a bad feeling, or it's unscientific. It's totally unscientific, but it's that intuition, maybe years and years and years of experience. So the engineer, as you said, can go to a bridge, feel the bridge, and just get that sense that something's not quite right. That's the intuition we're talking about, isn't it?
Yeah. And they're talking about intuition, not woo-woo intuition, but intuition
Did you just
that's
say
built
woo-woo?
on and intuition that's built on years of expertise and practice.
So accumulated, I guess, data, information, experience, then
Yeah.
maybe it's just the way that our brain works in the background. Because I'm sure that you've had instances where you've had a problem, you've gone to bed, woken up, and the solution's there.
Absolutely.
So in your
Absolutely.
subconscious, it's just doing
Yeah.
its thing.
So maybe it's going to be good for us because apparently Australia's the most expensive country in the world for 2-hour off-street parking and for daily off-street parking.
I couldn't believe that. We're more expensive than New York. It's $19.12 for 2 hours of off-street parking on average in Australia.
Well, they're more expensive as a city, but as a nation, we're more expensive than any other nation. So comparing us to America as a whole, we're more
Right.
expensive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah. Correcting you there, Patrick.
Well, maybe you should start parking for you because you're on the main street. You could start parking for the
Yeah.
spot out the front of your place because, I don't even use the spot. I just drive into your driveway and just leave my car there, and everyone gives me a dirty look. It's like I'm going in there for a reason. I need to drop off headphones or something. I always get a dirty look when I do that at your place.
Oh, do you?
Always.
Lots of people do it. And also, America is falling out of love with public car parks. So there's a number of states and cities that are changing the planning rules. At the moment, there are 3 and 6 car parking spaces per car in the between 3 and 6 car parking spaces per car in the US, and they're looking at changing that so that now if you're going to build not necessarily a hospital, that might be a bad example, but just an ordinary business, you don't necessarily have to, in these particular states, have a huge number of car parks. They gave the example of a dentist who had to put in something like 50 car parking spaces, but could only treat 2 people at a time and had to cut down all these trees to fit all the car parking spaces. So I think they're thinking that there needs to be a new way of thinking about car parking.
I actually read into this, and what was interesting is that in some places, in shopping malls and shopping strips, they've taken all the public car parking out. They've made bike lanes, and it actually, shopkeepers were panicked about it because they felt that less people would be going there. But the growth in business exceeded places where there were parking spots. So maybe the COVID thing has meant that more people are walking and riding and availing themselves, and they're certainly not being deterred by having less on-street parking.
Yeah, what was fascinating was that even though they studied it and proved, just as you said, the business improved, the traders didn't believe it.
I know, isn't it funny? It's the doubting Thomases, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you've been listening to OK Smartass, the podcast brought to you by a nerd and a smartass. I'm Patrick Bonello, and you can contact us by visiting our website at oksmartass.com or email nerds@oksmartass.com.
I'm Tor Roxburgh. If you like getting suggestions for books, podcasts, and viewing, you can find my newsletter via my Facebook and Instagram profiles. We'll see you again in the next episode. If you'd like to help the show, please do tell a friend, share a post online, or take the next step and support us via Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/OKSmartass to sign up.
And a big thank you to our Patreon supporters and our listeners who get in touch. If you like what we do, make sure to hit the subscribe button and share with your friends.